The scent hit me first. Lavender and lies wrapped around another woman's skin, clinging to my mate's collar like a confession he'd never spoken aloud. I stood frozen in the doorway of our shared cabin, my heart a dying bird thrashing against the cage of my ribs, watching Marcus, my Marcus, the man who'd promised me forever under 3 full moons, press his mouth against the neck of Vivian Cross, the pack's golden daughter, the fertile Omega every alpha desired. The sound of her breathy laughter curled through the air like smoke, acrid and choking, and I felt something inside me crack clean through, the way river ice splinters in early spring. "Marcus," I whispered, and the word tasted like ash. He didn't even have the decency to look guilty when he turned. His hazel eyes, the ones that used to soften when they found me across a crowded room, were hard now, flat as river stones. Vivian stayed draped across him like expensive silk, her perfect features arranged in an expression of false sympathy that made my wolf snarl beneath my skin. "Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I love hearing from you all around the world." Eleanor. My name in his mouth sounded like an ending. "We need to talk." The autumn wind pushed through the open door behind me, carrying the scent of dying leaves and approaching winter, and I realized with horrible clarity that I'd known this moment was coming. Had felt it, building like storm clouds on the horizon for months now, ever since the pack healer had confirmed what I'd feared in my bones. I was barren, cursed, unable to give Marcus the legacy every alpha craved, strong pups to carry forward his bloodline. "How long?" My voice emerged steadier than I felt, even as my hands trembled at my sides. I curled my fingers into fists, nails biting crescents into my palms, focusing on that small, sharp pain to keep from shattering completely. "Does it matter?" Marcus pushed away from Vivian with a casualness that somehow hurt worse than the betrayal itself. He crossed to the small table where we'd shared 1,000 meals, picked up a rolled parchment, and held it out to me. The Pack Council approved my petition for severance. It's official as of moonrise tonight. Severance. The word echoed in the hollow cavity of my chest. Not rejection. That would have been cleaner, more honest. Severance was what you did when a mate proved inadequate, defective, when they failed at the most basic biological imperative of our kind. I didn't take the parchment. Instead, I looked at Vivian, who'd arranged herself on our bed, with the satisfied air of someone who'd already won. Her hand rested on her still flat stomach in a gesture so pointed it might as well have been a blade. "She's carrying your child." It wasn't a question. 3 weeks along. Vivian's voice dripped with honey and venom. "The moon goddess has blessed us. Unlike some people, I can actually give Marcus what he needs. What the pack needs." The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. I'd known Vivian since we were children, had braided flowers into her hair at summer festivals, had called her friend once upon a time, before my curse had been confirmed, before I'd become something to be pitied and avoided, like bad luck made flesh. "Eleanor." Marcus stepped closer, and I caught his scent. Cedarwood and the morning dew. Once my favorite smell in all the world, now tainted by Vivian's perfume. "You have to understand, I have responsibilities. To my bloodline, to the pack. You can't give me pups, and Vivian can. It's not personal. Not personal." I repeated the words slowly, tasting their absurdity. "You're severing our mate bond, and it's not personal." Something flickered across his face. Regret, maybe, or just discomfort at having to face the consequences of his betrayal. The council is offering you a choice. You can stay in the pack as a healer. Elder Mira says your skills are valuable, even if you can't fulfill other duties. Or you can petition for lone wolf status and leave. Either way, you need to be out of this cabin by morning. Vivienne will be moving in. The world tilted sideways. They'd already decided my entire future, had carved up my life and divided it between them like spoils of war, all while I'd been gathering herbs in the forest, blissfully ignorant of the knife being sharpened at my back. I see. My voice came from somewhere far away, detached and clinical. Shock, probably. The kind that felt like floating, like watching your own life from outside your body. And what did you offer the council to get them to approve this so quickly? Severance petitions usually take months. Marcus had the grace to look away. My father sits on the council, and Vivian's family has significant influence. They want to see this bloodline continue. Strong pups from two powerful families. You have to admit, Eleanor, it makes sense for the pack. It makes sense. As if logic could paper over betrayal, as if practicality could excuse the destruction of every promise he'd made me. I thought of our mating ceremony 2 years ago, how he'd cupped my face in his hands and sworn before the moon goddess herself that I was his, now and always, in this life and whatever came after. Had those words meant nothing, or had they only mattered until I'd proven unable to give him what he truly wanted? I need air. I turned blindly toward the door, my wolf clawing beneath my skin, desperate to shift and run and never stop running. Eleanor, wait. Don't. The word cracked like a whip. Don't you dare tell me to wait. You've made your choice clear. Now let me make mine. I stumbled out into the twilight, the forest blurring around me through tears I refused to let fall. Not yet. Not where they could see. The pack compound spread out below our cabin, neat rows of houses, the great hall where we gathered for ceremonies, the training grounds where young wolves learned to fight. Everything familiar, everything now poisoned. My feet carried me away from it all, following deer paths deeper into the woods. The sun bled red along the horizon, painting the sky in shades of endings. Moonrise was coming, the moment when Marcus's severance would become binding, when the mate bond that had anchored me for 2 years would snap and leave me untethered, adrift. I pressed a hand to my chest, feeling the phantom ache of a wound that hadn't quite opened yet. The bond was still there, a golden thread connecting my heart to his. But it felt thinner now, fraying at the edges. At moonrise, it would dissolve like morning mist, and I would be alone in a way I'd never been before. The forest grew denser as I walked, ancient oaks giving way to towering pines that blocked out the dying light. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, a lone male calling for a mate who would never answer. The sound resonated in my bones, lonely and defiant and heartbreaking all at once. I found myself at the sacred springs without consciously choosing the destination. This place had always called to me, even as a child. The water bubbled up from deep underground, mineral-rich and warm even in the coldest months, pooling in a natural basin ringed by standing stones. Old magic lived here, the kind that predated packs and territories, ancient as the moon herself. The water glowed faintly in the gathering dusk, reflecting the first stars beginning to appear overhead. I knelt at the edge, trailing my fingers through the warm current, and finally, let myself cry. The sobs came from somewhere primal and raw, shaking my whole body. I mourned not just Marcus, but the future we'd planned together, the little stone cottage we were going to build at the edge of Packlands, the garden I was going to plant with moonflowers and sage. The children we were supposed to raise, whose faces I'd already imagined in quiet moments. His hazel eyes, my dark hair, laughter echoing through rooms that would now never exist. All of it, dust and dreams. I thought I might find you here. I jerked upright, swiping furiously at my tears. Elder Mira emerged from the shadows between two standing stones, her weathered face creased with concern. She moved slowly, leaning on her walking staff, but her dark eyes were sharp as ever, missing nothing. I wanted to be alone, I managed, my voice thick and broken. I know. She lowered herself onto a flat stone near the water's edge with a soft grunt. But sometimes what we want and what we need are different things. I turned back to the springs, not trusting myself to speak. Mira had been my teacher since childhood, training me in the healing arts, but she'd never offered comfort easily. She wasn't the type to coddle or soothe, which made her presence here even more unsettling. "Marcus is a fool," she said bluntly, "and the council are fools for approving his petition so quickly. But you, Eleanor, you're no fool, so I trust you're not sitting here planning to do something dramatic." Despite everything, a bitter laugh escaped me. Like what? Throw myself into the springs? Challenge Vivian to a dominance fight I'd lose? No, Elder Mira, I'm just trying to figure out what comes next. Good. She was quiet for a moment, the only sound the gentle burbling of the springs. Then, what do you know about lunar omegas? The question was so unexpected that I actually turned to look at her. Lunar omegas? They're a myth, a story we tell children about the old days, before the Great War. Myths usually have roots in truth. Mira's gaze was fixed on the water, her expression distant. The lunar omegas were real once, powerful. They could command moon magic, could heal with a touch, could see threads of fate that others couldn't perceive. The alphas feared them because their power didn't come from dominance or strength, but from something older, something connected to the moon goddess herself. Why are you telling me this? But even as I asked, something inside me stirred, a recognition I didn't understand. Mira finally looked at me, and the intensity in her eyes made my breath catch. Because I've known what you are since you were born, Eleanor Stone. Your mother knew too. She made me swear to keep you safe, to hide your true nature until the time was right. The world seemed to tilt again, but differently this time. What are you saying? I'm saying that the healers who declared you barren 3 years ago were instructed to lie. Her words fell like stones into still water, creating ripples that spread outward, disturbing everything I thought I knew. You're not cursed, child. You're a lunar omega, the last of your kind, and your inability to conceive with Marcus, that wasn't failure. That was the moon goddess's protection. My mind reeled. Protection from what? From wasting your gift on someone unworthy. Mira reached into her cloak and withdrew a small object, holding it out to me. Your mother left this for you. She said to give it to you when the rejection came, because she knew it would. Lunar omegas can only conceive with their true mate, the one chosen by the moon goddess herself. Marcus was never meant to be yours. I took the object with trembling hands. It was a pendant, a crescent moon carved from some silvery metal that seemed to glow with its own inner light. The moment my fingers closed around it, warmth flooded through me, and images flashed behind my eyes. My mother's face, younger than I remembered, whispering words I couldn't quite hear. A vast forest under a full moon, a silver wolf running through the trees, its eyes burning like molten gold. What's happening? I gasped, the pendant burning hot against my palm. Your heritage is waking up. Mira's voice seemed to come from very far away. The moon goddess has been waiting for this moment, Eleanor. The moment when you'd be stripped of everything you thought you were, so you could finally become what you were always meant to be. The pendant's heat intensified, spreading up my arm and into my chest, and suddenly I could feel something I'd never noticed before, a vast cosmic awareness pressing against the edges of my consciousness. The moon, still hidden below the horizon, but rising, calling to something deep in my blood. "There's more," Mira said urgently, gripping my shoulder. "The Alpha King is coming." I blinked, trying to focus through the waves of sensation washing over me. "What? King Rafael? Here? That's impossible. The Alpha King never visits minor packs." "He's been searching for the last lunar omega for 5 years, ever since the old prophecies were rediscovered in the royal archives." Mira's fingers tightened. "A prophecy that speaks of a rejected omega, wrongly called barren, who will bear twins to the Alpha King. Twins who will unite all the packs and usher in a new era of peace." The spring's water began to glow brighter, responding to something. To me, I realized with shock. My presence was affecting the ancient magic of this place, waking it after centuries of dormancy. "I don't understand any of this," I whispered. But even as I spoke, pieces were falling into place. The way I'd always felt different, out of step with pack life. The healing abilities that seemed to go beyond normal Omega talents. The dreams I'd been having for months. Dreams of running through a silver forest toward a destiny I couldn't name. "You will." Mira stood, her old joints creaking, and pulled me to my feet. "But first, you need to survive the severance. When the mate bond breaks at moonrise, it's going to hurt, badly. Your wolf will howl for Marcus even though your heart knows he's not worthy. You need to stay strong, Eleanor. Stay centered. Because on the other side of that pain, your true path begins." As if summoned by her words, the first sliver of moon appeared above the treetops. Full and round and impossibly bright, it painted the forest in shades of silver and shadow. I felt the exact moment when the mate bond began to fray in earnest, threads of golden light unraveling one by one. Pain lanced through my chest, sharp and sudden, stealing my breath. I doubled over, gasping, as the bond that had connected me to Marcus for 2 years began its final dissolution. It felt like being torn in half, like losing a limb, like dying a little bit from the inside out. Through the agony, I heard Mira's voice. "Hold on to the pendant. Let the moon goddess guide you through this." I clutched the silver crescent so hard its edges cut into my palm, blood welling up and dripping onto the spring's water. The moment my blood touched the surface, everything changed. The water erupted in light, pure, brilliant silver that shot up toward the moon like a beacon. The pain of the severance was still there, still excruciating, but now something else rose to meet it. Power, ancient and wild and utterly foreign, flowing into me from the moon above and the earth below, filling spaces in my soul I hadn't known were empty. My wolf surged forward, but she wasn't the timid, uncertain creature who'd always struggled to emerge. This was something else entirely, something massive and fierce and glowing with lunar light. I felt my bones begin to shift, my body preparing for a transformation unlike any I'd experienced before. No, I thought desperately, not here, not now. But the moon had other plans. The last thread of the mate bond snapped with an audible crack that echoed through the clearing, and I screamed, a sound that turned into a howl halfway through as my wolf finally broke free. The shift took me faster than ever before, painless and fluid, and when it was complete, I stood on 4 legs instead of 2, steam rising from my silvery white fur. Silvery white, not the mottled brown of my previous form, but pure silver, luminous as moonlight on water. What is happening to me? Elder Mira's voice penetrated the confusion. Your true form, child. This is who you were always meant to be. I should have been terrified, should have been curled up in a ball, mourning Marcus and the life I'd lost. Instead, I felt powerful. The forest sang around me, every living thing connected by threads of energy I could suddenly perceive. The ancient oaks with their deep roots, the small creatures hiding in the underbrush, the very earth beneath my paws thrumming with life. And something else. Someone else. A presence approaching through the trees, moving with predatory grace, his scent reaching me before I saw him. Pine and earth and storm winds wrapped around the unmistakable musk of a dominant alpha. The Alpha King had arrived. I turned toward the approaching presence, my newly silver wolf form moving with an instinctive grace I'd never possessed before. The forest seemed to part for him, branches bending, shadows retreating, as if nature itself recognized royalty when it walked among the trees. Then he stepped into the clearing, and my heart stopped. King Rafael Blackstone was everything the stories claimed and nothing I'd expected. Tall enough that I'd have to crane my neck to meet his eyes in human form, with shoulders broad enough to carry the weight of 7 territories. His dark hair fell in waves past his collar, and his face, sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, full lips, looked like it had been carved by an artist who understood both beauty and brutality. But it was his eyes that held me captive, amber, burning like captured sunlight, and fixed on me with an intensity that made my wolf whimper despite her newfound strength. He wore simple traveling clothes, dark leather pants and a loose shirt, but power radiated from him in waves that had nothing to do with clothing or crowns. This was an alpha who could command a room with a glance, who'd never needed to prove his dominance because everyone in his presence simply knew. Magnificent, he breathed, the single word carrying across the clearing like a prayer. I should have bowed, should have shown proper deference to the Alpha King. Instead, I held his gaze, my silver wolf refusing to submit, even as a small, rational part of my mind screamed that this was madness. You didn't challenge the Alpha King. You didn't meet his eyes as an equal. And you certainly didn't feel this bone-deep recognition, as if your soul had been waiting your entire life for this exact moment. The mate bond I'd just lost to Marcus had been comfortable, warm, like a familiar blanket. This, whatever this was, felt like touching lightning, dangerous and exhilarating and utterly consuming. Your Majesty, Elder Mira's voice cut through the charged silence. She bowed deeply, her old bones creaking with the effort. Forgive the informal setting. We weren't expecting you until... I came as soon as I felt it. Raphael's eyes never left me. The awakening, her transformation, it called to me from halfway across the territory. He took a step closer, moving slowly, carefully, as if approaching a wild creature he didn't want to spook. Eleanor Stone, the rejected Omega, the supposedly barren healer who just revealed herself as the last LUNAR OMEGA in existence. The way he said my name, with a reverence that Marcus had never shown, made something in my chest tighten painfully. I shifted back to human form without thinking, the transformation flowing as easily as breathing, and suddenly I was standing naked in the moonlight, my skin still glowing with residual power, completely exposed before the Alpha King and not caring at all. Elder Mira rushed forward with her cloak, wrapping it around my shoulders, but Rafael had already looked away, giving me privacy with a gentleman's courtesy that seemed at odds with the predatory intensity I'd seen in his eyes moments before. "I can feel your pain," he said quietly, still not looking at me. "The severed bond. It must be excruciating." It was. I pulled the cloak tighter, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. But something else took its place. Something bigger. Your heritage. Now he did turn back, and the raw hunger in his gaze made my breath catch. Your birthright. Eleanor, do you understand what you are? What you've always been? Elder Mira told me about lunar omegas, about the prophecy. I lifted my chin, refusing to be cowed even by an Alpha King. But I don't understand why you're here. Why you'd care about a rejected Omega from a minor pack. A smile curved his lips, predatory and possessive, and tinged with something that might have been wonder. Because I've been searching for you for 5 years. Because the moon goddess herself appeared to me in a vision and told me my true mate lived, hidden and unawakened, in one of the outer territories. Because every fiber of my being is screaming that you're mine and I'm yours, and the prophecy that will save our kind depends on us coming together. The words should have sounded insane, presumptuous. Instead, they resonated with a truth I felt in my bones. That lightning strike recognition intensified, and I realized with dawning shock that this was what a true mate bond felt like. Not the pale imitation I'd shared with Marcus, but something vast and inevitable, written in the stars and ordained by powers older than memory. "I don't even know you," I whispered, but the protest sounded weak even to my own ears. "Not yet." He moved closer, and I caught his scent, pine and earth and storm winds, but also something uniquely him that made my wolf rise up eagerly, ready to claim and be claimed. "But you will, Eleanor, if you'll give me the chance." Elder Mira cleared her throat. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should move this conversation somewhere more private. The pack will have felt the power surge from Eleanor's awakening. They'll be coming to investigate." As if summoned by her words, I heard voices in the distance. Pack members calling to each other, crashing through the underbrush toward the springs, toward me. And suddenly, I couldn't bear the thought of facing them, of seeing Marcus and Vivienne, of having to explain or justify or defend what had just happened. "Please," I said, looking at Rafael with desperation I didn't try to hide. I don't want to see them. Not now." Understanding flashed across his face. He held out his hand, an invitation and a promise. "Then come with me. My guards are camped a mile north. You'll be safe there, protected." I stared at his outstretched hand, knowing that taking it would change everything. That crossing this threshold meant leaving behind not just Marcus and the pack, but the entire life I'd built, however small and unsatisfying it had been. The sensible thing would be to wait, to think, to process everything that had happened before making more life-altering decisions. But when had being sensible ever gotten me anything but heartbreak and rejection? I placed my hand in his, and the moment our skin touched, the incomplete mate bond between us flared to life. A golden thread wrapping around both our hearts, tying us together in ways that went beyond flesh and choice. Raphael's eyes flashed amber bright, his wolf surging close to the surface, and I knew he felt it too. This inevitability, this rightness. "Hold tight," he murmured, and then he was shifting, his body flowing into the massive form of an alpha wolf, black as midnight, with those same burning amber eyes. He crouched low, and I understood what he was offering. I climbed onto his back, my fingers tangling in his thick fur, and he took off running. The world blurred around us as Rafael ran through the forest at impossible speed, his powerful legs eating up the distance. I clung to him, the cloak streaming behind me like a banner, and felt something wild and joyous rise up in my chest. This was freedom. This was power. This was what it felt like to be claimed by someone who saw you not as broken or lacking, but as exactly what they'd been searching for. Behind us, the voices of my former pack faded into nothing. Ahead, a new future opened up like dawn breaking. We reached the camp in minutes, a small clearing where several tents had been erected around a central fire. Royal guards stood at attention as Raphael bounded into view, their eyes widening when they saw me clinging to their king's back. He shifted smoothly back to human form, and I slid off, suddenly aware that he was now as naked as I'd been moments ago. Heat flooded my cheeks, but Raphael seemed utterly unbothered by his nudity as one of the guards quickly brought him clothes. "Prepare a tent for Lady Eleanor," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "She's to be treated with the same respect you'd show me. Anyone who fails to do so will answer to me personally." The guards scattered to obey, and Raphael turned to me, now dressed in fresh clothes. "You should rest. The awakening, the transformation, the severed bond. You've been through more tonight than most wolves experience in a lifetime. I'm not tired." It was a lie. Exhaustion pulled at my bones, but I was terrified that if I closed my eyes, I'd wake up and discover this had all been a fever dream. "I have too many questions." "Then let's talk." He gestured toward the largest tent, clearly his own, and I followed him inside. The interior was surprisingly comfortable, with thick furs on the ground, traveling chests along one wall, and a small table with 2 chairs. Raphael poured wine from a flask into 2 cups and handed me one. "Where would you like to start?" I took a sip of the wine, rich and smooth, nothing like the rough brew we drank in my pack, and tried to organize my chaotic thoughts. "The prophecy. Elder Mira mentioned twins, that I'm supposed to bear your children, and they'll somehow unite the territories and bring peace." "That's the essence of it, yes." Raphael settled into the other chair, his posture relaxed despite the intensity of the conversation. The full prophecy was discovered 5 years ago in the royal archives, carved onto tablets that dated back to the time before the Great War. It speaks of a lunar omega, rejected and believed barren, who will mate with the Alpha King and bear him twin children, a son and a daughter. These twins will possess unprecedented power, combining the best of both Alpha and Lunar Omega heritage. They'll be able to bridge the divide between packs, to bring together territories that have been fractured since the Great War. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Your support means everything and helps me create more content like this. "And you believe I'm this Omega?" The wine warmed my stomach, helping to steady my nerves. "I know you are." His certainty was absolute. "When the moon goddess came to me in the vision, she showed me your face. Not clearly, just glimpses, like seeing someone through water. But she told me you'd be living in obscurity, rejected by those who should have cherished you, your true nature hidden even from yourself. She said I'd find you when the time was right, when you'd been stripped of all false bonds and were ready to embrace your destiny." I thought of Marcus, of the mate bond severing just hours ago. The timing seems convenient. The moon goddess works in mysterious ways. A wry smile touched his lips. "But yes, I don't think it's coincidence that I felt your awakening the same night your mate severed your bond. The prophecy had to begin somewhere. Perhaps your rejection was the catalyst needed to trigger your transformation. The idea that Marcus's betrayal had been somehow necessary, part of a greater design, should have made me angry. Instead, I felt a strange sense of peace. If my suffering had purpose, if it had led me to this moment, to Rafael and the discovery of my true nature, then maybe it hadn't been wasted after all. What happens now? I asked, voicing the question that had been circling my mind since I'd taken his hand at the springs. Rafael's gaze intensified, amber eyes holding me captive. That depends on you, Eleanor. The prophecy may have brought us together, but I won't force you into anything. Despite what you might think of alpha kings, I'm not in the habit of claiming mates who don't want to be claimed. Even if it means the prophecy goes unfulfilled, even then. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his amber eyes. I've lived 35 years, Eleanor. I've had a mate before. My queen, who died in childbirth along with our son 3 years ago. I know the difference between a bond forced by duty and one blessed by genuine connection. I want you. God, I want you with an intensity that terrifies me, but only if you want me too. The raw honesty in his words stole my breath. This was the Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in all 7 territories, admitting vulnerability, admitting that I held power over him as surely as he held it over me. I don't know you, I said again, but this time it wasn't a protest. It was an acknowledgement of the journey ahead. But when you touched me, when our bond started to form, I felt something I never felt with Marcus, something real and right and terrifying. The true mate bond. Raphael's voice went rough with emotion. It's supposed to be terrifying. It's supposed to consume you, change you, make you willing to burn down the world for the person on the other end of it. I set down my wine cup with trembling hands. I was rejected tonight, told I was worthless because I couldn't bear children, and now you're telling me I'm destined to bear not just children, but prophesied twins who will reshape our entire society. It's too much, Raphael. Too fast. I know. He reached across the table and took my hand gently, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. The touch sent sparks of heat up my arm, the incomplete mate bond yearning to be sealed. That's why I'm not asking you to decide tonight. Stay with me. Travel to the capital. Let me court you properly, show you who I am beyond the crown and the prophecy. Get to know me, let me know you. And if, at the end of it, you decide you don't want this life, I'll release you with my blessing and protection. You'd really do that? I searched his face for any hint of deception. Just let me go? It would destroy me. His honesty was brutal, beautiful. But yes, I'd rather have you happy and whole without me than miserable and trapped beside me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mere hours ago, Marcus had severed our bond without a second thought because I couldn't give him what he wanted. Now the Alpha King himself was offering me freedom, choice, respect, even though I supposedly held the key to a prophecy that could unite his territories. How long? I asked. How long until I'd need to decide? As long as you need. Raphael squeezed my hand gently. A month, a year, a decade. I've waited 5 years to find you, Eleanor. I can wait longer to win you. A knock at the tent flap interrupted us. Your Majesty, a guard's voice called. Commander Thorne reports that representatives from the Stonebrook Pack have arrived. They're demanding to speak with you regarding Lady Eleanor. Raphael's jaw tightened, his protective instincts visibly rising. Tell them I'll meet with them in the morning. Lady Eleanor is under my personal protection and will not be disturbed tonight." "Yes, Your Majesty." I pulled my hand back, anxiety spiking. "They're already looking for me. Marcus has no claim on you anymore." Raphael's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "The moment he severed your bond, he forfeited any rights he had. You're under the protection of the Alpha King now. No one can touch you without going through me first." The fierce possessiveness in his tone should have bothered me. Instead, it felt like a balm on wounds that were still raw and bleeding. For the first time in years, maybe in my entire life, someone was standing between me and those who would hurt me. Someone was choosing me, defending me, declaring to the world that I mattered. "Thank you," I whispered, and meant it with every fiber of my being. Raphael's expression softened. "You don't need to thank me for doing what's right. Now you really should rest. Tomorrow will bring challenges enough without you facing them exhausted." He was right, of course. The adrenaline that had sustained me through the awakening and transformation was fading fast, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness that made my limbs feel like lead. Raphael called for the guard again, instructing him to show me to my tent. Before I left, I turned back one more time. "Raphael, the prophecy, does it say anything about when? When the twins are supposed to be born?" Understanding and heat flashed across his face. "The prophecy speaks of twins conceived under a lunar eclipse and born at the spring equinox. The next lunar eclipse is 3 months away." 3 months. Barely any time at all to go from rejected Omega to mate of the Alpha King, from believing myself barren to preparing to carry prophesied twins. The timeline should have sent me into panic. Instead, I felt a strange calm settle over me, as if some part of me, the part that had always known I was different, destined for more, was finally exhaling after years of holding its breath. 3 months, I repeated. That's not much time to fall in love. Raphael's smile was slow and devastating. Then it's fortunate that I have a head start. I've been halfway in love with the idea of you for 5 years. Now that I've met the reality, I'm already lost, Eleanor Stone. The only question is whether you'll let yourself be found. I had no answer to that, not yet, so I simply nodded and let the guard escort me to my tent, smaller than Raphael's but still comfortable, with clean furs and soft pillows that looked like heaven after the night I'd endured. I collapsed onto the bedding, Elder Mira's cloak still wrapped around me, and finally let myself process everything that had happened. Less than 12 hours ago, I'd been standing in a stone circle, being publicly reminded of my supposed barrenness. Now, I was lying in a tent in the Alpha King's camp, having discovered I was a lunar omega, having met my true mate, having learned I was central to a prophecy that could reshape our entire world. It was madness. It was impossible. It was terrifying and exhilarating and utterly overwhelming. Outside, I could hear the camp settling down for the night, quiet conversations, the crackling of the fire, the rustle of canvas in the breeze. Somewhere out there, Raphael was likely lying awake in his own tent, thinking about me, about us, about the future that stretched before us like an unwritten book. And somewhere further away, in the pack I'd called home, Marcus was probably lying in our old bed with Vivian, never knowing that he'd just thrown away a destiny beyond his wildest imagination. That the barren Omega he'd rejected was actually the key to a prophecy, the mate of an Alpha King, the mother of future legends. I should have felt vindicated, victorious. Instead, I just felt tired and confused and cautiously, carefully hopeful that maybe, just maybe, The moon goddess really did have a plan for me. That my rejection had been necessary to lead me here, to this moment, to Rafael. I woke to birdsong and golden sunlight filtering through the canvas, disoriented for a moment before memory crashed back in. The awakening, Rafael, the prophecy. I sat up slowly, my body aching in strange ways. Not pain exactly, but the lingering echo of transformation, as if my bones remembered being reshaped and my muscles recalled flowing into a different form. Someone had left fresh clothes folded beside my bedding, a simple dress in deep forest green, soft leather boots, and undergarments that actually fit. I dressed quickly, acutely aware that I was wearing clothes provided by the Alpha King, that I was in his camp, under his protection, standing at the threshold of a life so different from everything I'd known that I could barely comprehend it. When I emerged from the tent, the camp was already bustling with activity. Guards moved with military precision, breaking down smaller tents and preparing for travel. The smell of cooking meat and fresh bread drew me toward the central fire, where a woman I hadn't seen last night was tending to breakfast. "Lady Eleanor," she bowed slightly, her eyes warm with curiosity. "I'm Captain Sarah, head of His Majesty's personal guard. I trust you slept well?" The title, Lady Eleanor, sounded foreign on someone else's tongue. "Well enough, thank you. Is His Majesty, meeting with the representatives from your former pack?" Sarah's expression hardened slightly. "They arrived at dawn demanding your return. Commander Thorne is with him now." My stomach churned. "What will happen?" "That depends on what they're claiming." Sarah handed me a plate of food: eggs, bacon, fresh bread with butter and honey. "But I can tell you this. I've served King Rafael for 10 years. I've never seen him claim someone under his personal protection and then relinquish them. Whatever those representatives want, they won't be leaving with you." The certainty in her voice should have comforted me. Instead, it made me acutely aware of how much my life had shifted in a single night, how much power Rafael wielded, and how easily that power could be turned against me if I disappointed him or failed to fulfill the prophecy. I was picking at my food when Rafael himself appeared, striding into camp with Commander Thorne at his side. He looked tense, his jaw tight and his eyes hard in a way they hadn't been last night. When his gaze found me, though, some of the hardness melted. "Eleanor, walk with me?" It wasn't really a question, but he phrased it like one anyway, giving me the illusion of choice. I set down my half-eaten breakfast and followed him away from the camp into the forest where the morning light filtered through the canopy in shafts of gold and green. We walked in silence for several minutes before Rafael finally spoke. "Marcus, Grayson, and Elder Brennan were here, along with 2 other council members from your pack." "What did they want?" Though I already knew. "You." Rafael's voice was flat, controlled. "They claim that your transformation last night was witnessed by multiple pack members, that you shifted into a form they'd never seen before. Silver fur, glowing with lunar power." Word spread quickly. Now they're saying the healers made a mistake years ago, that you're not barren after all, and Marcus wants to void the severance. I stopped walking, my breath catching. "He what?" "He claims he was misled by faulty information." Rafael turned to face me, and I could see the leashed fury in his eyes. "That if he'd known you were capable of bearing children, and powerful children at that, given your obvious magical abilities, he never would have severed the bond. He's petitioning for the severance to be reversed." Rage flooded through me, hot and acidic. "He can't do that. The bond is broken. It's done." "Technically, there's a grace period." Rafael's voice remained carefully neutral, but his hands clenched into fists at his sides. For the first 3 days after a severance, if both parties agree and petition the council together, the bond can be reinstated. Marcus is claiming he made his decision based on false information and deserves the chance to correct his mistake. Mistake. The word tasted like poison. He didn't make a mistake. He made a choice. He chose Vivian and her fertile womb and her powerful family connections over me. The only thing that's changed is that now he knows I might be valuable after all. I know. Rafael stepped closer, his presence a wall of strength at my back. Which is why I told them absolutely not. You're under my protection now, and I don't care what their pack laws say about grace periods or reversals. Marcus Grayson had his chance with you, and he threw it away. Relief and something fiercer, gratitude mixed with that dangerous recognition I'd felt last night, surged through me. What did they say? Elder Brennan threatened to take the matter to the High Council, claiming I'm overstepping my authority by interfering in pack internal affairs. A grim smile curved Raphael's lips. I reminded him that I am the High Council's authority in these territories, and that any pack leader who wants to challenge my decisions is welcome to do so in formal combat. Strangely, no one took me up on the offer. Despite everything, I almost laughed. You challenged them to fight you? I was more diplomatic than that, but yes, essentially. His hand came up, hesitating for a moment before gently touching my cheek. The contact sent warmth cascading through me, the incomplete mate bond, singing with pleasure. Eleanor, I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this because of the prophecy or because I need you to bear my children. I'm doing this because what Marcus did to you was wrong, because you deserve better than a mate who only values you when he thinks you're useful. The sincerity in his voice cracked something open inside me. You don't even know me. Not yet. His thumb traced along my jawline, his touch reverent. But I know enough. I know you're strong. You survived years of rejection and isolation with your dignity intact. I know you're brave. You met my eyes last night when any other Omega would have submitted. I know you're powerful. You awakened your lunar heritage in a single night, something that should have taken weeks or months of guidance. And I know you're mine, Eleanor. Maybe I can't explain it logically, but every instinct I have is screaming that you belong at my side. I should have pulled away, should have reminded him that he was moving too fast, assuming too much. Instead, I leaned into his touch, letting myself take comfort from his strength. What happens if I can't be what the prophecy needs? What if I can't bear the twins, or can't control my powers, or... Then we figure it out together. Raphael's other hand came up to frame my face, his amber eyes intense and utterly focused on me. I won't lie to you. I hope the prophecy comes true. I hope our children will bring peace to the territories. But if it doesn't happen, if the prophecy was wrong or incomplete or we're not who it spoke of, I'll still want you, still choose you, still fight anyone who tries to take you from me. The mate bond flared between us, golden and demanding, pulling us closer. Raphael's head dipped lower, his breath ghosting across my lips, and I knew he was going to kiss me. Knew that if he did, if we sealed even a fraction of this bond, there would be no going back. Raphael, I whispered, his name strange and intimate on my tongue. I'm terrified. Good. His lips curved into a smile I felt more than saw. So am I. Then he closed the remaining distance and kissed me, and the world caught fire. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was claiming and desperate and absolutely consuming, his mouth moving against mine with a hunger that matched the howling emptiness Marcus had left behind. The mate bond exploded between us, golden light flooding through my veins, and I gasped against Raphael's lips as pleasure and power and recognition washed over me in waves. This was what a true mate kiss felt like. This was what I'd been missing my entire life. This sense of coming home, of finding the other half of my soul, of being seen and wanted and chosen by someone whose very existence seemed designed to complement my own. Raphael's hands slid into my hair, tilting my head to deepen the kiss, and I pressed closer, my fingers clutching at his shirt. My wolf surged up with approval, recognizing her mate, ready to complete the bond fully. His wolf answered with a possessive growl that rumbled through his chest and vibrated against my own. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the forest around us had changed. Flowers had bloomed where there were none moments before. Moonflowers, dozens of them, their silvery white petals opening despite the morning sun. The trees seemed to lean toward us, and birds sang overhead in patterns that sounded almost like music. What? I looked around in wonder. Did I do that? We did. Raphael's voice was rough with emotion. Lunar Omega magic responding to the mate bond. The forest recognizes what's happening between us. I touched one of the moonflowers, marveling at its impossible existence. This is insane. This is destiny. Raphael caught my hand, bringing it to his lips. And it's only the beginning, Eleanor. If a single kiss can make flowers bloom, imagine what we'll create together when the bond is fully sealed. The implications sent heat rushing to my cheeks. The bond wouldn't be complete until we mated properly, until we came together in the most intimate way possible and let our wolves merge as fully as our human selves. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it made something low in my belly tighten with anticipation. We should return to camp, Raphael said reluctantly, though his thumb continued tracing patterns on my hand. We need to leave before noon if we're going to reach Silverbrook territory by nightfall. Where are we going? I'd assumed the capital, but apparently not immediately. I have responsibilities I can't ignore, even for you. His expression turned rueful. There's a gathering of territory alphas in 2 days, a quarterly council where we discuss border disputes, resource allocation, security concerns. I need to attend, and I want you with me. I want them to meet you, to understand that the prophecy is real and unfolding. Anxiety spiked through me. You want me to meet the other territory alphas? Raphael, I'm not ready for that. I barely understand what I am, let alone how to... You'll be perfect. He squeezed my hand reassuringly. I'm not asking you to perform or prove anything. Just stand beside me. Let them see you. The Lunar Omega's power is impossible to hide, Eleanor. They'll feel it the moment you enter the room. We walked back to camp, hand in hand, and I noticed several guards doing double takes when they saw us together. Captain Sarah's expression remained professionally neutral, but I caught the hint of satisfaction in her eyes. Apparently, my connection with Raphael pleased his inner circle. The camp was nearly packed when we arrived. Tents had been collapsed and loaded onto pack horses, the fire extinguished, all traces of our presence methodically erased. Raphael's people moved with the efficiency of long practice, and I felt a pang of inadequacy watching them. These were warriors, leaders, people who belonged in Raphael's world. What was I compared to them? A healer from a minor pack who'd just discovered she had powers she didn't understand. As if sensing my thoughts, Raphael leaned close and murmured, "Stop doubting yourself. You belong here because I say you do, and I'm the Alpha King. That makes my word law." arrogant much, but I was smiling despite myself. It's not arrogance if it's true. His answering grin was devastating. Besides, you're about to be my queen. You'll need to develop some arrogance of your own. The casual way he said it, you're about to be my queen, as if it were already decided, should have annoyed me. Instead, it sent a thrill through my body. Queen. Me. The rejected Omega who'd been called barren and worthless. The impossible magnitude of it made my head spin. We traveled on horseback, Rafael insisting I ride beside him at the front of our group rather than in the middle, where I'd be more protected. Let anyone watching see us together, he explained. Let them understand that you're not a prisoner or a curiosity. You're my intended mate, and you ride at my side as an equal. The journey through the forest was beautiful. Autumn had painted the trees in shades of crimson and gold, and the air carried the crisp scent of approaching winter. We rode in comfortable silence for the most part, though occasionally Rafael would point out landmarks or share stories about his territories. By midday, we'd left the forest behind and entered rolling hills covered in amber grass. In the distance, I could see mountains rising like jagged teeth against the horizon. The Silverbrook territory, Rafael explained. Alpha Marcus Silverbrook is hosting the gathering. He's young, only 28, but capable. His father died 2 years ago, and he's been working to modernize their pack structure. Another Marcus. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Rafael glanced at me sharply. Not all Marcuses are faithless cowards. Alpha Silverbrook is nothing like your former mate. Former mate. The words still felt strange. This morning, Marcus had tried to reverse the severance, had wanted me back now that I might be valuable. The audacity of it still made my blood boil. Do you think he'll keep trying? Marcus Grayson, I mean. Probably. Raphael's jaw tightened. Men like that don't handle rejection well. In his mind, you were his property, his to discard or reclaim at will. Discovering you're not only powerful, but destined for someone far above his station, his ego won't recover easily. I don't want to see him again. You won't have to. Raphael's voice carried the weight of a promise. Not unless you choose to. And if he tries to approach you against your wishes, he'll answer to me. The protective fury in his tone should have bothered me. I'd spent my life being dismissed and controlled by others, and I didn't want to trade one cage for another, even a gilded one. But somehow, Raphael's protectiveness felt different. It wasn't about controlling me or limiting my choices. It was about standing between me and those who would hurt me, about using his power to shield rather than subjugate. We rode until the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Finally, we crested a hill and saw our destination spread out below, a sprawling compound of stone buildings surrounded by wooden walls, with smoke rising from dozens of chimneys and the sounds of evening activity drifting up to meet us. Welcome to Silverbrook, Raphael said, his hand finding mine again. Are you ready? I looked down at the territory below, at the life that awaited me, gatherings of powerful alphas, political maneuvering, the weight of prophecy and expectation. Everything I'd never wanted or prepared for, everything that terrified me. But I also thought of the moonflowers that had bloomed from our kiss, of the silver wolf I'd become, of the way Raphael looked at me like I was precious beyond measure. I thought of Marcus's betrayal leading me here, to this moment, to this man, to a destiny I was only beginning to understand. No, I admitted honestly, but I'll do it anyway. Raphael's smile was proud and possessive and full of promise. That's my queen. Then we rode down the hill together, toward whatever waited below, and I felt the future opening before us like an unfurling map, vast and unknown and full of possibility. The gates of Silverbrook opened as we approached, guards snapping to attention when they recognized the royal insignia on Raphael's traveling cloak. We rode through cobblestone streets lined with curious onlookers, pack members who stopped their evening routines to stare at the Alpha King and his unexpected companion. I felt their eyes on me, assessing, wondering who I was and why I rode at Raphael's side rather than behind him with the other guards. Let them wonder. Something fierce and new had awakened in me alongside my lunar powers, a refusal to shrink or apologize for taking up space. If Raphael wanted me beside him as an equal, then that's exactly where I'd be. The main building was impressive, 3 stories of gray stone with tall windows that glowed warmly in the gathering dusk. As we dismounted, a young man emerged from the entrance, his movements quick and energetic. He had sandy brown hair, green eyes that sparkled with intelligence, and an open, friendly face that immediately put me at ease. "Your Majesty," he clasped Raphael's forearm in the traditional warrior's greeting. "We received your message about attending the gathering, but I didn't expect you until tomorrow, and with a guest, no less." His curious gaze turned to me, polite but questioning. "Alpha Marcus Silverbrook, allow me to introduce Lady Eleanor Stone." Raphael's hand settled at the small of my back, warm and possessive. "My intended mate." The words landed like a boulder in still water. Marcus Silverbrook's eyes widened, and behind him I heard gasps from the assembled household staff. I couldn't blame them for their shock. Alpha Kings didn't typically show up unannounced with new mates, especially not ones who looked like common Omegas dressed in simple traveling clothes. To his credit, Marcus recovered quickly, his expression shifting from surprise to genuine pleasure. "Lady Eleanor, welcome to Silverbrook. Any mate of the Alpha Kings is honored family here." He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that felt sincere rather than perfunctory. "Please, come inside. You must both be exhausted from your journey." The interior of the main house was warm and inviting, with tapestries covering the stone walls and thick rugs softening the floors. Servants moved efficiently, taking our travel cloaks and offering refreshments. I noticed several of them stealing glances at me, their expressions ranging from curiosity to poorly concealed skepticism. Marcus led us to a comfortable sitting room where a fire crackled cheerfully in a massive hearth. "I'll have rooms prepared for you both immediately. The gathering doesn't officially begin until tomorrow evening, so you'll have time to rest and refresh yourselves. Will you be requiring separate chambers or—" He let the question trail off delicately, and I felt heat creep up my neck. Raphael and I hadn't discussed sleeping arrangements, hadn't talked about the physical aspects of our bond beyond that devastating kiss in the forest. "Separate chambers for now," Raphael said smoothly, though his hand tightened slightly on my back. "Lady Eleanor and I are still in the early stages of our courtship. I intend to do this properly." Something in my chest loosened at his words. Even with the prophecy hanging over us, even with the mate bond pulling us together, Raphael was giving me time and space, not rushing me toward the inevitable consummation that would seal our bond completely. "Of course," Marcus's expression suggested he approved of Raphael's restraint. "I'll have my staff prepare the Queen's suite for Lady Eleanor. It's the finest room in the house after my own chambers. And, Your Majesty, you'll have your usual accommodations in the East Wing." A matronly woman appeared, introducing herself as head housekeeper Margaret, and offered to show me to my rooms. I glanced at Rafael, suddenly reluctant to leave his side even though we'd be under the same roof. He seemed to understand. "I'll join you for dinner in an hour. That should give you enough time to settle in and rest." I followed Margaret up a grand staircase and down a corridor lined with portraits of previous Silverbrook alphas. The Queen's suite was at the end of the hall, a spacious apartment with a sitting room, bedroom, and private bathing chamber. Everything was decorated in shades of cream and gold, elegant without being ostentatious. "Lord Silverbrook wanted you to know that anything you need, you've only to ask," Margaret said kindly. "We're honored to host the Alpha Kings intended. It's been many years since we've had such distinguished guests." After she left, I sank onto the plush sofa and finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of the past day. Less than 24 hours ago, I'd been standing in that stone circle, being reminded of my barrenness. Now I was sitting in a queen's suite, preparing to dine with the Alpha King and meet territory leaders as his intended mate. The transformation was so complete, so surreal, that part of me still expected to wake up in my small cottage and discover this had all been an elaborate dream. A knock at the door interrupted my spiraling thoughts. "Come in." To my surprise, Captain Sarah entered carrying a large trunk. "Courtesy of His Majesty," she explained, setting it down and opening the lid to reveal clothing far finer than anything I'd ever owned. "He sent word ahead to have appropriate garments prepared for you. There's dinner attire, formal wear for the gathering tomorrow, and several day dresses." I lifted out a gown in deep sapphire blue, the fabric so soft it felt like water between my fingers. "This is too much." "You're to be his queen." Sarah's expression was matter of fact. "You need to look the part. The other territory alphas will be judging you from the moment you enter that gathering hall. Some will be looking for reasons to dismiss you, to question Raphael's choice. Don't give them ammunition." Her bluntness was refreshing after so much careful politeness. "You think they'll challenge his decision to mate with me?" "Some might." Sarah leaned against the doorframe, her posture relaxed, but her eyes sharp. "You're unknown, from a minor pack, and suddenly elevated to the highest position in our society. There will be those who think Raphael should have chosen someone with better bloodlines, political connections, or combat prowess. They'll see you as a weakness." "And what do you see?" I asked, genuinely curious. Sarah studied me for a long moment. "I see someone who survived years of rejection without breaking. Someone brave enough to meet the Alpha King's eyes when any other Omega would have submitted. Someone he looks at like she's the answer to a question he's been asking his entire life." She smiled slightly. "That's not weakness, Lady Eleanor. That's exactly what he needs." Her words settled something anxious in my chest. "Thank you for being honest with me. Always." Sarah pushed off from the doorframe. "Now, let me help you get ready for dinner. If you're going to meet Marcus Silverbrook and his inner circle tonight, you should do it looking like a queen rather than a refugee." With Sarah's help, I bathed in the luxurious tub filled with hot water scented with lavender and rose, then dressed in the sapphire gown that hugged my curves and made my light hair seem to glow. Sarah arranged my hair in an elegant twist, leaving a few tendrils to frame my face, and stepped back with satisfaction. "Perfect. Raphael won't be able to take his eyes off you." When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The woman staring back looked sophisticated, powerful, nothing like the plain healer who'd mixed remedies in a small cottage just yesterday. The transformation was more than physical, though. Something in my eyes had changed, a confidence that hadn't been there before. Or perhaps it had always been there, buried beneath years of being told I was less than, and was only now being allowed to surface. Rafael was waiting in the corridor when I emerged, and Sarah had been right. He couldn't look away. His amber eyes darkened as they traveled over me, lingering on the way the gown displayed my collarbone, the curve of my waist, the swell of my hips. "You're stunning," he said simply, offering his arm. "You clean up pretty well yourself." And he did. He'd changed into formal attire, black pants, and a deep burgundy shirt that made his dark hair and amber eyes stand out dramatically. He looked every inch the Alpha King, powerful and commanding and devastatingly attractive. He led me down to a private dining room where Marcus Silverbrook waited along with 3 others, 2 men and a woman, all radiating the confidence of high-ranking pack members. They rose as we entered, bowing respectfully to Rafael before turning curious gazes on me. "My beta, James," Marcus introduced a stocky man with kind eyes. "My third, David, and my sister, Catherine." Catherine was beautiful in a wild, untamed way. Copper hair, freckled skin, and hazel eyes that assessed me with frank curiosity. "So you're the one who's captured the Alpha King's heart," she said, her tone friendly rather than hostile. "Marcus told us you just met yesterday. That must be some kind of record." "Catherine," her brother warned, but she waved him off. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Don't worry, Lady Eleanor. I'm not judging. When you know, right? My parents were mated within 3 days of meeting, and they had 40 beautiful years together." Her openness was disarming. "Then you understand it's possible," I said carefully. "More than possible." Raphael's hand found mine under the table as we sat. "Eleanor is my true mate. The bond between us is unprecedented." The word choice was deliberate, I realized. He wasn't mentioning the prophecy yet, wasn't explaining about my LUNAR OMEGA heritage. That revelation would come at the gathering tomorrow, in front of all the territory, alphas at once. Dinner was served: roasted venison, root vegetables glazed with honey, fresh bread still warm from the ovens. The conversation flowed easily, Marcus proving to be an engaging host, with a quick wit and genuine interest in his guests. He asked about my healing work, my pack, my interests, treating me like a person rather than an oddity to be examined. "Eleanor has a gift for healing that goes beyond normal Omega abilities," Raphael said at one point, pride evident in his voice. "She saved an elder who was dying of fever when other healers had given up." "That's impressive," James said. "Our pack healer retired last year, and we've been struggling to replace him. Most wolves with healing abilities don't want to leave their home territories." An idea sparked. What if you trained new healers instead of importing them? Identify pack members with natural aptitude and teach them the skills. It would create stronger local knowledge and keep the talent within your territory. The table fell silent, everyone staring at me. I felt my cheeks heat, suddenly worried I'd overstepped. I was supposed to be Raphael's intended mate, not offering unsolicited advice to territory alphas. But Marcus was leaning forward, his expression thoughtful. "That's actually brilliant. Why didn't we think of that? We've been so focused on finding a replacement healer that we never considered creating our own." "Because you were thinking like most alphas do. That expertise is something to be acquired rather than developed," Catherine said, grinning at me. "I like her, Raphael. She thinks differently." The approval in the room was palpable, and I felt some of my anxiety ease. Maybe I could do this after all. Maybe I could be more than just the prophesied mate. I could actually contribute, use my knowledge and experience to help improve pack life across the territories. Rafael's hand squeezed mine under the table, and when I glanced at him, the warmth in his eyes made my heart skip. He was proud of me, I realized, not just possessive or protective, but genuinely pleased that I was holding my own in this company. After dinner, Marcus invited us to join him on the terrace for evening drinks. The night air was cool but pleasant, and the view from this height was spectacular. I could see the entire territory spread out below, lights twinkling in windows as pack members settled in for the night. The gathering tomorrow will include 8 territory alphas plus yourself, Marcus explained to Rafael, then turned to me. It can get contentious. We're all allies in theory, but in practice there are old grudges, border disputes, and competition for resources. Rafael keeps us in line, but it's not always pretty. Should I be worried? I asked, only half joking. Probably, Catherine said cheerfully. Alpha Rowan from the Ironwood territory is particularly traditional. He won't take kindly to an unknown Omega suddenly being presented as the future queen. And Alpha Victoria from Blackwater has been positioning her daughter as a potential match for Rafael for years. She's going to be furious. Catherine, Marcus shot his sister an exasperated look. What? Better she knows what she's walking into than be blindsided tomorrow. Rafael's arm came around my shoulders, pulling me close against his side. Let them object. Let them challenge. Eleanor is mine, chosen by the moon goddess herself. Anyone who wants to contest that can face me in the ancient way. The casual mention of ritual combat sent a chill through me. You'd fight other alphas over me? I'd burn down the world for you. He said it so matter-of-factly, as if it were the most obvious truth. But it won't come to that. Once they understand what you are, what we represent together, they'll fall in line or face consequences beyond their ability to handle. There was steel beneath his words, a reminder that Rafael wasn't just my mate. He was the Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in all the territories, and he didn't tolerate challenges to his authority. We stayed on the terrace for another hour, talking and drinking spiced wine while the stars emerged overhead. Despite Catherine's warnings about tomorrow, I felt oddly peaceful. These people, Marcus, James, David, Catherine, they'd accepted me without question, had welcomed me into their home, and treated me like I belonged. It was more than my own pack had ever done. Finally, Rafael walked me back to the Queen's suite, pausing outside my door. The corridor was empty, private, and the air between us felt charged with everything unspoken. Tomorrow will be difficult, he said quietly, his hand coming up to cup my cheek. Some of the alphas will question you, test you, try to find weaknesses, but I need you to remember something, Eleanor. You don't need to prove yourself to them. You don't need to justify your place at my side. You are a lunar omega, destined to reshape our world. Their approval is irrelevant. But your approval isn't, I whispered. His thumb traced my lower lip, his eyes darkening with desire and something deeper. You already have it. You've had it since the moment you met my eyes at the springs and refused to look away. You've had it since you chose to come with me instead of staying where you were safe and known. You have my approval, my protection, my devotion, and very soon, you'll have my heart completely. Very soon, I echoed, my pulse racing. I'm already halfway there. He leaned in, his lips brushing against my forehead in a gesture so tender it made my chest ache. Sleep well, Eleanor. Tomorrow we show them exactly who you are. I watched him walk away, his figure disappearing down the corridor, and felt the mate bond stretch between us like a living thing. It didn't hurt, not like the severing with Marcus had, but it pulled, insistent and yearning, wanting us closer, wanting completion. Inside my room, I couldn't sleep despite my exhaustion. I kept replaying Rafael's words, the intensity in his eyes, the casual way he'd mentioned fighting for me. No one had ever fought for me before. No one had ever thought I was worth the effort. I moved to the window, looking out over the Silverbrook territory bathed in moonlight. The moon was waning now, moving toward darkness before it would grow full again. Full moon to full moon, a complete cycle. In 3 months, there would be a lunar eclipse, and if the prophecy was true, that's when the twins would be conceived. 3 months to go from rejected Omega to mother of prophesied children. 3 months to fall completely in love with an alpha king who already looked at me like I hung the stars. 3 months to learn how to be a queen, to wield lunar powers I didn't understand, to face down territory alphas who would question my worth. It should have been impossible, terrifying. Instead, standing in that moonlight with Rafael's scent still clinging to my skin and the mate bond humming in my chest, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Hope. I finally slept near dawn, my dreams filled with silver wolves and moonlight and amber eyes that promised forever. Morning came too quickly. Sarah arrived with breakfast and helped me dress in one of the day gowns, a soft gray that somehow made my light hair look silver, ethereal. The gathering doesn't start until evening, she explained, but the alphas have been arriving all morning. Word has spread about you. They're curious. Curious or hostile? Both. Sarah's honesty was becoming familiar. Alpha Victoria arrived an hour ago with her daughter Cordelia. She's been asking pointed questions about who you are and where you came from, and Alpha Rowan sent a formal inquiry to Raphael questioning whether an Omega from a minor pack is suitable to be queen. My stomach churned with anxiety, but I forced myself to eat. I'd need strength for what was coming. Raphael found me in the garden after breakfast, where I'd been walking among the late autumn flowers, trying to calm my nerves. He looked tired, as though he'd slept as poorly as I had, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. I have something for you. He held out a small velvet box. Inside was a ring, silver band wrapped around a moonstone that seemed to glow with inner light. It was beautiful and delicate and clearly very old. It belonged to my mother, Raphael said softly, taking my left hand. She was a Luna, not a lunar Omega, but she had moon magic in her blood. She told me before she died to give this ring to my true mate when I found her. I gave a different ring to my first queen, because what I felt for her, while genuine, wasn't this. He slipped the ring onto my finger, and the moment the moonstone touched my skin, warmth flooded through me. This is different, Eleanor. You're different, and I want everyone at that gathering to see it. I stared at the ring, tears pricking my eyes. Raphael, I don't know if I can do this. What if I fail? What if I can't be what the prophecy needs? What you need? What? He silenced me with a kiss, deep and claiming and full of promise. When we broke apart, I was breathless, the mate bond singing between us. You're already everything I need, he murmured against my lips. Now stop doubting yourself, and let's go show these alphas what a real queen looks like. The afternoon passed in a blur of preparation. Sarah helped me dress in formal attire, a gown of midnight blue that flowed like water, adorned with silver embroidery that caught the light. My hair was arranged in an intricate style, the crescent moon pins Raphael had given me back at his camp woven throughout. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a queen staring back. But inside I was still Eleanor, still the rejected Omega who'd mixed herbs in a cottage, still terrified of failing, of disappointing, of being exposed as a fraud. "Stop thinking so loud," Catherine said, appearing in my doorway. "I can practically hear your anxiety from down the hall." "I don't belong here," I admitted. "These are powerful alphas with centuries of lineage and political connections. I'm nobody." "You're Raphael's mate." Catherine came closer, her expression serious for once. "That makes you the most important person in this territory tonight. But more than that, Eleanor, I watched you at dinner last night. You didn't simper or flatter or try to make yourself smaller. You spoke your mind, offered genuine insight, and treated everyone like equals. That's what a real queen does. Not someone who inherited power, but someone who earned the right to wield it through who they are." Her words settled something in me. She was right. I couldn't pretend to be someone I wasn't, some polished, politically savvy ruler. But I could be myself, honest, direct, and unafraid to speak truth even to power. As the sun began to set, Raphael came to escort me to the gathering hall. He wore formal black with silver accents, his crown, a simple platinum circlet, resting on his dark hair. He looked every inch the Alpha King, commanding and powerful and absolutely devastating. "Ready?" he asked, offering his arm. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his mother's ring on my finger, the pull of the mate bond in my chest, the strange new power humming beneath my skin. Ready. The gathering hall was enormous, with vaulted ceilings and stone columns carved with wolves in various poses. A massive table dominated the center, and around it sat 8 alphas, each representing one of the 7 territories, plus Marcus Silverbrook as our host. They rose as Raphael and I entered, and I felt the weight of their collective gaze like a physical force. Alpha Victoria was immediately identifiable. A striking woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and ice blue eyes that assessed me with barely concealed hostility. Beside her sat a younger woman who must be Cordelia, beautiful and poised and clearly furious about my presence. Alpha Rowan was a massive man with a gray streaked beard and the kind of weathered face that suggested he'd spent more time on battlefields than in council chambers. His expression as he looked at me was pure skepticism. The other alphas ranged from curious to cautiously welcoming, their faces a mixture of ages and expressions that I couldn't quite read. Raphael led me to the head of the table, where 2 seats waited, but instead of directing me to the smaller chair beside his throne-like seat, he pulled out the throne itself and gestured for me to sit. Shocked murmurs rippled through the room. Raphael was offering me the position of highest authority, the seat reserved for the Alpha King himself. "Raphael," I whispered, "I can't." "You can." His voice carried absolute certainty. "And you will. Because tonight, these alphas need to understand that you're not just my mate. You're my equal, my partner, my queen. Now sit." I sat, my heart hammering, while Raphael took the smaller seat beside me. The symbolism was unmistakable and unprecedented. The Alpha King had just publicly declared that I held equal authority. Alpha Victoria was the first to speak, her voice dripping with disdain. "With all due respect, Your Majesty, this is highly irregular. We were told this gathering would discuss border disputes and resource allocation, not meet your latest romantic interest." "Lady Eleanor is not a romantic interest." Raphael's voice was calm, but carried an edge that made several alphas shift uncomfortably. "She is my true mate, chosen by the moon goddess herself, and the key to a prophecy that will reshape all our territories." "Prophecy?" Alpha Rowan scoffed. "What prophecy? And even if such a thing existed, What makes you think this slip of a girl from nowhere is central to it? Rafael stood, his presence filling the room. Because she's not a slip of a girl from nowhere. She's a lunar omega, the last of her kind, and she's awakened her powers. Show them, Eleanor. I looked at him in panic. Show them what? I barely understood my powers, let alone knew how to control them. But Raphael's eyes held confidence, belief, absolute certainty that I could do this. And the moonstone on my finger was growing warm, responding to something. To the moon rising outside, to my anxiety, to the power flowing through my veins. I stood slowly, every eye in the room fixed on me. The moonstone's warmth spread up my arm and into my chest, and suddenly I could feel it. The vast well of power Elder Mira had spoken of. The lunar magic that had always been there but buried, suppressed, hidden even from myself. I let it rise. Silver light erupted from my skin, not painful but radiant, filling the hall with luminescence that made everyone shield their eyes. My hair lifted in an invisible wind, and I felt my wolf surge forward, not taking over, but merging with my human consciousness in a way I'd never experienced. We were one being, human and wolf, omega and lunar magic, past and future flowing together. The light intensified, and I heard gasps, chairs scraping as alphas stood in shock and awe. Through the brilliance, I could see their faces. Victoria's hostility transformed to wonder, Rowan's skepticism replaced by something like fear, the others staring at me as if witnessing the return of a goddess they'd thought lost forever. When I finally let the power recede, the hall was silent except for the sound of heavy breathing. I remained standing, my skin still glowing faintly, meeting each alpha's eyes in turn. The prophecy speaks of a rejected omega, wrongly called barren, who will mate with the alpha king and bear him twins, Raphael said into the silence. Twins who will unite the territories and usher in lasting peace. Eleanor is that omega, and I am claiming her before all of you as my mate, my queen, and the mother of our future. Alpha Victoria found her voice first, though it trembled slightly. Lunar omegas were hunted to extinction. How do we know she's genuine and not some trick, some... Do you really want to finish that sentence? Raphael's voice dropped dangerously low. Do you want to stand here and suggest I'm either stupid enough to be fooled or dishonest enough to deceive my own territory, alphas? Choose your next words carefully, Victoria. She paled, but stayed silent. Marcus Silverbrook stood, breaking the tension. I witnessed Lady Eleanor's transformation myself, in my own territory. The power she displayed was beyond anything I've seen in my lifetime. If Raphael says she's a lunar omega destined to bear prophesied children, then I believe him, and I pledge Silverbrook's complete support to this union. One by one, the other alphas stood, pledging their support. Some clearly believed, others looked uncertain, but none were willing to openly challenge Raphael's claim. Only Victoria remained seated, her expression tight with poorly concealed rage. But even she eventually rose and offered a stiff bow. Then it's settled, Raphael said, his hand finding mine and squeezing gently. The gathering will proceed as planned, but with the understanding that Eleanor is to be treated with the same respect you'd show me. Any slight against her will be taken as a personal insult. Any threat to her will be met with my full wrath. Are we clear? A chorus of, "Yes, Your Majesty," echoed through the hall. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of political discussion and territorial negotiations. I sat beside Raphael, his mother's ring catching the light, and observed the complex dance of power and alliance that governed our world. Occasionally, an alpha would direct a question to me, testing perhaps, and I answered honestly, drawing on my experiences as a healer and my observations of pack life. By the time the gathering concluded near midnight, I was exhausted but exhilarated. I'd done it. I'd faced down 8 powerful alphas and proven I belonged at Rafael's side. As we walked back through the corridors toward our separate rooms, Rafael pulled me into a shadowed alcove, his hands framing my face. "You were magnificent," he breathed. "Absolutely perfect. Did you see their faces when you let your power show? They'll never doubt you again." I was terrified, I admitted. "I know. That's what made it so powerful. You were terrified, but you did it anyway. That's courage, Eleanor. That's what a queen looks like." He kissed me then, deep and thorough and claiming, the mate bond flaring between us with such intensity that I gasped against his mouth. My whole body ached for him, the wolf in me howling to complete the bond, to make him truly mine in every possible way. 3 months, I whispered when we broke apart. The prophecy says 3 months until the eclipse. "We don't have to wait that long to seal the bond," Rafael murmured, his lips trailing along my jaw. "We could complete the mating tonight, let our wolves claim each other fully. The conception can wait for the eclipse, but the bond, yes." The word escaped before I could second-guess it. "Yes, Rafael, I'm ready. I choose you. I choose this." His amber eyes flared with heat and possession, and something deeper. Love, though neither of us had said the words yet. "Are you certain? Once we complete the bond, there's no going back. You'll be mine and I'll be yours, permanently and irrevocably." I thought of Marcus, of the shallow bond we'd shared that had broken so easily. Then I thought of Rafael, his protection, his respect, his absolute certainty that I was worthy of everything he was offering. I thought of the prophecy, of the twins we would create, of the future spreading before us full of possibility. "I've never been more certain of anything," I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. Raphael's smile was devastating. He took my hand and led me, not to my room or his, but out into the garden where moonlight painted everything silver. This was fitting, completing our bond under the moon's witness, surrounded by nature and magic and the ancient power that had brought us together. As he pulled me close, his hands sliding into my hair, his mouth claiming mine with desperate hunger, I felt the last pieces of my old life fall away. I wasn't the rejected Omega anymore. I wasn't barren or cursed or worthless. I was Eleanor Blackstone, LUNAR OMEGA, true mate to the Alpha King, and mother of the future. And as Raphael lowered me onto the soft grass, and our wolves finally merged in the way they'd been yearning for since that first moment at the springs, I felt the mate bond snap into place completely, golden and unbreakable and utterly perfect. The moon witnessed our union, blessing it with silvery light that made our skin glow. And somewhere in the vast cosmic design, I felt the prophecy shift into motion, destiny unfolding exactly as it was always meant to. I had been rejected, cast aside, told I would never be enough. But the moon goddess had other plans, and as Raphael whispered words of love and devotion against my skin, as our bond sealed and our futures intertwined irrevocably, I finally understood. Sometimes rejection is just redirection towards something infinitely better. Sometimes being broken apart is necessary to be rebuilt into something stronger. Sometimes the Omega they called barren is actually destined to change the world. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more epic romance stories. Drop a comment below and let me know what you thought. What did you think of the prophecy? I read every single comment, and your support means the world to me. Until next time, may you all find your true mates